Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great day. My name is Dioria, and if you're in the community, you have probably seen me around Discord. Today I will be discussing some things about the revolutionary blockchain game being developed by the renowned developer Jam City Champions Ascension. I apologize for the crude slideshow format, but I wanted this to be a direct video to discuss some things. So let's get to it. Full disclosure, there is still much to be said about the game. This video acts as a medium of informative speculation and explanation. I am not affiliated with Jam City or Champions Ascension, and I am not a blockchain or paid to earn professional, only a gamer. This video is guided by my own thoughts. In today's video, I will be discussing and clarifying founders and my understanding, dissecting the eternal and speculating gameplay effects, and speculating breeding and giving an example of what could possibly happen. If you haven't already seen, Champions Ascension announced some neat perks that came along with minting. I will summarize them here and try to explain for some people confused. Alongside these, there are many other perks that you should check out on their website or Medium. Link to this will be in the bio. So, a TLDR. Each Prime Eternal generates Masina coins to buy land, and each Prime Eternal will receive one pet. This is regardless of how you acquired a Prime Eternal, whether through minting or OpenSea, but it is likely that it has to be before the game is released. Now for the people who mint and held or bought theirs early off of OpenSea, it is said that one plot of land is reserved for you per Eternal. Now this is still being discussed whether the land is airdropped for free or each Eternal is guaranteed a land plot once they reach enough Masina token, but please keep up to date with what Champions Ascension has to say about this in their Discord. The quote-unquote priority queue could mean different things in context of their approach. If they decide to airdrop the land, then it is straightforward and everyone is in queue of land selection depending on how many Prime Eternals they have. However, if they mean Masina tokens, then people who have more Eternals get to choose first, since they generate more Masina tokens from all of their Eternals. No matter what, this means people who own more Eternals will get to select better locations if this process isn't done randomly. But rest assured, you will have land. Each Eternal also gets an extra pet and a special weapon. Champions Ascension did a nice thing for public minters where each Eternal between 2590 and 3190 will be given a hoodie and an extra regular character. So no matter if you minted or bought it off of OpenSea, if you have this in your wallet before Snapshot, you are eligible for these perks. Remember, these perks are reserved for buyers only. Sorry sellers. There will be more info on regular characters soon though. I've prepared some visuals in case you are still confused. So if you own a Prime Eternal in general, or if you got it after Snapshot, then you are eligible from all perks stated in their Medium article. You are also able to generate Masina tokens to buy land, and you will receive the pet that all Eternals get. Remember, these perks are per Eternal, so if you own multiple, you will get rewards from each one. However, if you have one Prime Eternal before the Snapshot, you will get everything previously mentioned, so the perks, the Masina tokens, and the pet, but you will also receive another special pet for a total of 2 pets and a special weapon. Now if you have 2, things get better. You will get all perks for each Eternal. You will also get 2 times the Masina token generation. For example, if each Eternal generates a Masina token in a week, then you are given 2 tokens since you own 2 Eternals, 1 token per Eternal. This plays into land queue priority if they do decide to guarantee land in that manner. Each Eternal will generate 2 pets each, 1 normal and 1 special, and a special weapon for a grand total of 4 pets and 2 weapons. You will also get a neat box NFT shown here, and you will also have access to initial breeding. Of course, it takes 2 to tango, so it'll only make sense for this perk to be here. We will cover breeding later in this video. If you have 3, you are qualified for the hat trick. Remember that as you go up in tiers, you qualify for everything before. That's why things seem repetitive. So each Eternal gets the usual perks, token generation, 2 pets, and a special weapon. So this should leave you with 6 pets, 3 weapons, and 3 times the Masina token generation. If you have 4 Eternals per se, then you would have 8 pets, 4 weapons, and 4 times the token generation. You also get the box and access to breeding, but also 3 land decorations, which will be revealed soon, but in this case they are pineapples with sunglasses. This is just to reiterate for the special 600 champions. Alongside the regular perks, each Eternal in this number range also gets a hoodie and a regular champion to go alongside them. A 2-for-1 deal, so not bad. Now, let's get to dissecting our Prime Eternal. If you open your Prime Eternal on OpenSea, you will be able to see it in all of its beauty and grace. In the top right corner of the NFT, you will see the number of divine parts it has, indicated by the number of horizontal dashes there are. In this case, mine has 2 dashes, so 2 divine parts. If there are none, there will be no symbol there. If you open the Properties tab, you will be greeted with what properties your Prime Eternal has. As you can see, this is classified as a Prime Eternal. Once the game releases more characters, we will begin to see lesser tiers like Rare, Common, etc. Please remember that all Prime Eternals are the best in this game, divine part or not. These are the only characters that will possess the perks and token generation that they do. You can also view the champion family. My Prime Eternal happens to be an Eos. There are 12 different families, so plenty to choose from. Next, let's discuss some of the symbolism shown. So far, there have only been 3 essences, aka classes or elements, shown. These are the supernatural, death, represented with the skull, arcane, represented with the crystal ball, and life, represented with the sapling. The rarities are represented from C to D, C being common, R is rare, E is epic, and D is divine, which only Prime Eternals can have and cannot be replicated. For example, on the right, for my Prime Eternal, the clause says C, sapling, and imbued. This means it is common, life clause with the imbued style. Now, let's discuss some crucial terms to determine your Prime Eternal strength. Purity is the number of essences of each part that align with the core essence of the character. Using my own character as an example again, the core essence is death, making it a death Eos. So the purity is how many parts are death. If you look, there are 3 parts that have skulls. So out of the 5 parts, my Eos' purity is 3 out of 5. Not too shabby. We could expect buffs to come out of purity, similar to armor set buffs in video games, where if you wear all pieces of the same set, you gain a buff, although we don't know about this yet. The divinity is 2 out of 5, since there are only 2 divine parts, indicated with a D. The rest are a varying rarity. Okay, so on to an exciting part, speculating the status. So we know that there are 3 essences, death, arcane, and life. We know from the lore, which will be applied in-game, that life beats death, death beats arcane, and arcane beats life. Now these can't really be considered landslide wins, and we don't know how they will be applied in the game, but it is safe to assume there are slight buffs or debuffs depending on the essence of your character. So from what I saw in the characters, there are traits with rarity and essence, and traits with just rarity. I separated these into traits that affect status and aesthetic traits. So these traits that affect status could be divided into offensive and defensive stat categories. For example, claws are used to buff attack, fangs to buff critical damage, and war paint to buff how much damage you do to a dazed enemy or exploiting their weakness. Tails could be used to buff total defense, horns to defend from head strikes, hence critical defense, and wings to give mobility to evade and increase dodge. We can use this to predict how each champion's family's playstyle will be, since each family only has 5 out of 6 possible stat altering trait. So for example, the Eos has no horns, which make them vulnerable to critical hits. Using our speculated stats, this would make them an offensive leaning unit. The Karkadon has no war paint, so they don't have an exploit weakness buff. This strips them of an offensive stat buff, which makes them a defense leaning unit. We can safely use rarity that we discussed in the last part to measure the potency. The more rare, the stronger the effect. For example, Common can give a 2% buff, but Divine gives a 10% buff, and so on and so forth. Prime Eternals also have aesthetic traits. These are seen in hairstyles for certain families, halos, which were mentioned only for Prime Eternals, and piercings. Let's talk about breeding. Champions Ascension mentioned that breeding in more correct terms is bioengineering. Bioengineering means genetic engineering, and in the real world, we use genetic engineering to choose specific favorable genes. But in this case, it is likely that probability is still involved. This means that you are really picking genes from both parents' pools. This doesn't mean that they are necessarily mating, meaning the genders don't matter and that you only need 2 Prime Eternals. It could probably take hours to hatch or even longer. It all depends on how things pan out. So how could this work? Some systems that I had in mind were a point system. Say you're given a set amount of points and you spend them to add certain traits to the pool possibility. For example, you are given 10 points and you want to produce an Arcane Eos. One of the parents have epic arcane wings and you want them for the offspring. You could use 7 out of the 10 points to ensure the offspring gets those wings. That leaves you with 3, so you can only choose a common trait that you want, or none at all. Another system is the selection system. So you're allowed to choose 2 traits straightforward, and the rest of the traits are discarded. Now these don't necessarily mean that these traits should be guaranteed and such, but it could also mean adding to the probability of them appearing. An example I've prepared is between my life Eos and my death Eos. So one of them has 2 divine parts and the other none, but this doesn't matter since divine parts cannot be passed down to the offspring. For this example, we will run with the selection method. So what we know is that the Eternal will be an Eos, since both parents are Eoses. The core essence will be life or death, and the clause will be common life imbued, since both parents share that trait, and common is the lowest rarity. What is unknown are the aesthetic and the stat affecting traits like fangs and war paint. So if I like the arcane songbird wings, I would choose that so they can have a boosted percentage of appearing, and I like the gravely hairstyle on one parent, so I would choose that as well. Every other trait will be random. I don't know how the pool of randomness will work, but it is definitely there. It is also mentioned that parts can degrade, so even those common claws could become none or have the chance of upgrading. Who knows? There's so much to be discovered. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Champions Ascension is still early and there is much to be uncovered. A big thank you to Champions Ascension and the Astounding community. Follow Champions Ascension and myself on Twitter, the ads are on the screen. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment if you have anything to say. I apologize for the crude formatting once again, but I love this game and wish to keep making more content for it. But that is all. Enjoy your day and peace. Keep vibing.